My son vanished 10 years ago. What returned was sinister, cursed, and spine-chilling. The storm crashed against the windows of Melissa's crumbling home in Grimwood. Rain lashed like icy fingers, and thunder rolled like a beast in pain. It was a night that felt alive, charged with a pulsing dread. 10 years had passed since her son, Noah, had vanished into thin air. All that remained was an empty room and an aching heart echoing with guilt. As she hid behind the door, breath racing, her pulse drummed louder than the storm. What if tonight held a miracle? Or something darker? A soft knock echoed through the desolation, slicing through the storm's fury. Horror and hope curled in her stomach. She glanced through the peephole, heart in her throat. It looked like Noah. The crescent shape of his face, those once charming curls, but something felt off. She opened the door, her hand trembling. A frigid breeze swept inside, chilling her to the bone. "Mom?" His voice was raspy, as if it were borrowed from the air around him. The warmth she remembered was gone. Instead, his eyes, once full of light, were black hollows that swallowed joy. As she stepped back, the familiar image blurred, replaced by a vague sense of danger. Was this truly her son? Days turned into a hazy nightmare. Noah had returned, but he wasn't the boy she had lost. Dinner conversations spiraled into murmurings, his knowledge of family secrets revealed unsettling truths about her past that made her skin crawl. The whispers that filled the dark corners of her mind now echoed through the house, ratcheting up her fear. Was he still Noah? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sitting across from her, Noah toyed with his food. The fork clinked against the plate, a hollow sound in the hollow space. He spoke in riddles about shadows and fears. Each night she dreamed of the skinwalker, that wretched spirit that stole children. She thought it was just folklore until now. The skin it wore, the deadening silence that wrapped around her home, felt too real. As the tales of the skinwalker haunted her, she approached the apathetic police department. The officers leaned back, arms crossed, more interested in her tragic history than their duty. She felt the cold stares of the townsfolk, the whispers that followed her like a shadow. Was she responsible for this nightmare? One night, while flipping through her research, despair welled up. The truth clouded her mind. Noah's return wasn't a miracle, it reeked of a curse. When she sensed a presence looming over her shoulder, she dropped her papers and spun around. The darkness in the room thickened, pressing in on her like a weight. Just then, she caught a glimpse of movement outside the window, a flash of something unnatural. As fear twisted tightly in her gut, her thoughts screamed, if this isn't her son, then what has returned to claim her? The wind howled, a banshee wail that sent shivers down Melissa's spine. She felt the chill of the room creep deeper into her bones, as if the air itself conspired to crush her spirit. Noah sat across the table, his expression inscrutable, shadows dancing across his features. Those hollow eyes appeared to absorb the dim light, leaving only darkness behind. "Do you remember the games we used to play?" he suddenly asked, his voice reminiscent of a distant echo. "What do you mean?" she stammered. "The ones where we whispered names into the night, and sometimes they answered." His lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The fork clattered again as he thrust it into his food, leaving an eerie silence in the room. Melissa glanced away, forcing herself to concentrate on the storm outside. But her mind was a swirling vortex of dread and confusion, her heartbeat racing wildly. The memories of Noah before the disappearance felt like a dream slipping out of reach. Was there any truth left in this empty shell before her? Curling her fingers into fists, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. "Noah, tell me, who brought you back?" He looked up, interest flickering in those dark eyes. It was the Whisperer. The thing that speaks to shadows. "It knows you, Mom. It knows everything." "And my past?" She could barely croak out the words, the weight of her hidden secrets crashing over her like a wave. In response, he nodded gravely. Yes. A knot tightened in her throat. Memories of her darkest mistakes flooded her mind, the things she thought she'd forgotten, buried like a dead weight in her heart. The Skinwalker legends twisted around her thoughts. Could the creature of lore know her as well? Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the house, jolting her from her spiraling thoughts. Noah didn't flinch, he continued to eat, oblivious. Panic flared within her as she jumped to her feet. She rushed toward the window to see a figure lurking in the downpour, a shape too humanoid yet grotesquely distorted. Melissa's breath quickened. She squinted through the glass, trying to decipher the shadowy being. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, flicking in and out of the edges of the rain. No longer could she pretend the storm was merely stormy. The air felt alive, as if it were charged with a malevolent energy that seeped into her very soul. "Mom, just let it in," Noah said coolly. He leaned back, a sinister grin revealing too much of his teeth. "It wants to play." "No." The urgency in her voice shattered the fragile calm. Every instinct screamed to lock the door, to hide somewhere far from the truth. This wasn't just about her son. It felt like a challenge, a game that she wasn't playing and yet had already lost. The pounding increased, vibrations rattling her bones. She wavered between the door and the window, trapped in a spin of terror. It felt like the walls were closing in, and the air between them thickened with the promise of danger. Melissa glanced back at Noah, whose gaze was unwavering, as if he was silently encouraging her to yield to the encroaching shadows. Her heart raced, a hybrid of fear and love. Would she let whatever cursed force was out there take another child from her? As the shadows outside began to take shape, stretching fingers toward her, she could hear whispers circling in the storm, repeating her name. Melissa saw. What if it knew her son's name too? What would it demand in return? In the storm's heartbeat, she turned back to the unseen horror outside, ready to fight for what remained, then froze. As the door splintered, a voice emerged from the darkness, sultry and cruel. Let the game begin. She felt it like a knife in her gut. The return of chaos was inevitable. What awaited her on the other side? The door splintered again, more violently this time. The darkness pushed against it, eager to spill into her sanctuary. A chill that felt alive curled around her ankles, inching upward, squeezing her breath. Melissa gripped the table as the wood groaned beneath the unholy pressure. No! She shouted, planting her feet firmly on the ground, digging in. But the force at the door was relentless, hungry. The whispers in the wind grew louder, a chorus of mocking voices intertwined with the clamor of the storm. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, flash images of horrors not yet seen. Noah remained still, an unsettling calmness about him as his grin widened, a terrifying crescent moon upon his face. With each splinter, she could sense an ancient power lurking just beyond the threshold, its tendrils weaving in and out of her mind, pulling at the seams of her sanity. "Mom, let it in," he said again, his voice heavy with something darker. "I told you it wants to play. It knows you too." Panic twisted her insides. Was this a game to him? To her? The walls shimmered under the grisly tension, looking almost alive, ready to devour them whole. He was no longer the boy she had mourned, the son she desperately searched for. This was something else, something that had crawled back from an abyss only to serve its own incomprehensible designs. She forced herself to focus, to cling to her fading sense of reality. The door splintered one last time, bursting open with a deafening crack. The storm flooded the room, rain sweeping inside like icy fingers grasping at her skin. And there it stood, a creature wreathed in shadow, its form twisting, morphing with unsettling fluidity. It seemed to pulse, as if it were drawing breath, its face blurring and reshaping like a mirage, never settling into anything familiar or human. "Welcome back, Melissa," it hissed, a voice as smooth as silk yet dripping with malice. "We've missed you." Her heart exploded in her chest, panic urging her to run, but she couldn't move. She was entrapped in its gaze. Those eyes, if they could even be called, that swirled like pools of black water, each ripple promising secrets only the damned could know. "What do you want?" she rasped, clutching the edge of the table as darkness pressed closer, oozing through the doorway, enveloping her like a cloak of despair. The thing smiled, its mouth stretching too wide against its contorted features. What I want is to make a choice. There was a pause, filled with thick silence, but it felt like a plea disguised as a threat. Your son or your past, it whispered, the words sliding across her skin like ice. Choose wisely, for one must remain. One must pay. The other can join us. Everything inside her screamed. The remnants of love for Noah battled against the suffocating dread of her forgotten sins. Her mind raced. This wasn't just about Noah, this was about her, what she dared to hide, and what the dark was willing to unearth. Mom, Noah murmured, the hollow echo in his voice reminiscent of a ghost she couldn't escape. Let us help it find what it wants. The intensity thickened, pouring from the creature like fog, curling around her thoughts, molding them into terrifying shapes. Choices, aching like a wound she thought healed. Would she sacrifice her son's innocence? Or lay bare her own past, the terrible choices crafted in fear and ignorance? As she battled the rising tide of fear, as shadows circled like vultures promising her demise, she knew the game was only just beginning. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the storm swirling inside her head. What do you choose? The figure asked, the question humming in the tumult of the storm, demanding an answer. Another loud crash from the thunder outside rattling her bones, rooting her to the ground. But in that moment, Melissa realized something was already arising within her, a truth lost so long ago rooted in her heart. There was no escape from her past games or the shadows they summoned. But she had to make a choice, and the answer loomed closer than she dared believe. As the void beckoned, however, she pulled breath into her collapsing chest. I choose. But before the words could form, the sudden howl of anguished laughter erupted around her, drowning out her thoughts. What awaited her at the edge of truth? In shadows that had once been home, the game was no longer just about survival. What would a mother truly sacrifice for a child still lost in the dark? The laughter echoed like a death knell, reverberating off the walls. Melissa felt herself slip into the dark place where time stilled, where reality twisted, and every breath tasted of remorse. In that suffocating silence, the choice hung in the air like a heavy fog, its weight pressing down upon her chest like a stone. Choose, the creature urged, its voice now layered with a mocking tone, sharper and more sinister. You have mere moments. The storm is your witness. Melissa's heart raced, each drumbeat fueling her desperation. The walls of her sanctuary closed in, the shadows jostling for supremacy. It was suffocating, unrelenting. The dark was alive, writhing and jostling within her mind, unraveling her memories like strands of grossly woven fabric. She faced the truth, she had hidden parts of herself too long, wrapped them in silence. Mom! I am here. Noah's voice was no longer just a plea. It rang with an unsettling cadence, like the cracking of ice beneath the weight of something dark and ancient. Help him, Melissa. The creature's words soothed her like poison. Grant him what he desires most. Or embrace the price of your past forever. The offer dangled before her, tantalizing yet grotesque. Images of regret splattered across her thoughts, a turbulent collage of moments she fought to forget. The guilt clawed at her heart. The choices she had made 15 years ago, decisions made in panic, in fear, were they surfacing now? Did Noah deserve to endure the taint of her cowardice? Noah, she gasped, struggling to find him in the embrace of the stormy shadows. He stepped into view, still smiling, but the darkness clung to him like a shroud. I want to see you happy, Mom. Whatever the choice is, I'll be with you. She struggled to hold on to the vision of his innocence, flickering now like a candleless flame. What would that look like, happiness, if her past resurfaced? Memories unspooled in her mind, a car crash, a buried secret, a twisted truth that had shattered their world. She had almost forgotten, hadn't she? But now, the weight of her sins loomed larger. Suddenly, the creature lunged, an outstretched hand reaching for her in an exhilarating rush. Feel it. It hissed. Let it wash over you. The burdens you carry were never meant for you to bear. Melissa recoiled, wrestling with the storm. Each whisper from the creature coiled tighter around her thoughts, whispering promises of freedom in the face of sacrifice. But freedom at what cost? The storm's roar competed with the echoes of her choices, each louder than the last. Noah needs you now, the creature pressed, pulling at her own doubts. You want to protect him, don't you? Let him have what should come to him. As she stood on the precipice, the question gnawed at her: what were the depths of her love? Would choosing one mean annihilating the other? The blackness of the creature pulsated with anticipation, a living heartbeat in the corner of her vision. It was a choice no mother should ever have to make. Could she reclaim her son? A piece of herself? What was lost? What could remain? The winds howled with a rage only she could quell, if only she dared. Enough! She screamed, voice cracking under the weight of her anguish. I choose to save Noah. The entire room shook like the earth beneath her feet, teetering on the brink of oblivion as shadows roared in fury. But something shifted in the air, a sudden clarity slicing through the chaos. The laughter stopped, leaving a suffocating silence. But in that moment, it wasn't just the dark that changed. A flicker of memory surged within her, something buried deep, something terrifying and liberating all at once. What have you done? The creature spat, its voice fraying at the edges. With trembling hands, she clutched the edge of the table, eyes fixed on Noah as his smile began to fade, uncertainty creeping into his expression. Mom? What did you do? The shadows churned, growing frantic, lunging at her with renewed rage as the very walls of her past began to shift and crack. She had unleashed something long buried, but the storm was just beginning to reveal its true nature. What did she awaken within the darkness? And now, what would that mean for Noah, and for herself? The silence stretched, suffocating and heavy, wrapping around Melissa like a noose. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears, drowning out all rational thought. Noah's gaze darkened, confusion and fear creeping into his innocent eyes. Mom? What did you do? The question hung in the air, a bitter echo amid the swirling shadows. Before she could answer, before she could even process the weight of her decision, the shadows lunged forward. The creature's laughter returned, a cacophony that echoed off the walls, bright and twisted. Noah! The name ripped from her lips as shadows wrapped around his small form, tendrils snaking possessively through the air. They pulsed, glimmering with a grotesque light, drawing him closer into the darkness. Panic surged through her, a cold, heartache that clawed at her insides. The creature grinned, its form morphing and shifting, as if reality twisted in response to its glee. You've opened a door, dear Melissa. And what crawls through should not be seen by delicate eyes. You chose him, but darkness wants him too. No! She lunged, but the shadows formed a barrier, a swirling mass of despair and dread. Noah was caught in the center, his bright smile flickering like a candle in the wind. What are you? She shrieked, the words escaping in a desperate rush. What do you want with him? The creature leaned closer, its features shifting like liquid, a face fluctuating between grotesque and familiar. What I want is simple. To remind you of what you've lost and what you may still gain. Memory clawed at her mind, a night of sirens, shattered glass, the weight of guilt pressing hard. She remembered the darkness, the choice she had made to bury the truth, to lock it away in the deepest confines of her heart. It had promised safety but delivered a hollow life. Now, it demanded reckoning. Your son, dear Melissa, isn't the only one with darkness in his heart. You have a destiny intertwined with his. Look! The creature gestured, and momentarily, the shadows receded, revealing glimpses of other times, other faces. Melissa gasped. Her own face stared back at her from childhood photographs, layered with memories long forgotten. Each represented a choice she had made, paths she turned away from. The shadows fed on her history, twisting the warm memories into chilling specters. Laughter echoed, curling around her thoughts, mocking her. Noah was still trapped, his eyes wide with fear as he struggled to escape the clutches of shadow. Mom! Help me! Please! His plea struck Melissa with an icy grip, as if it wrapped around her heart and squeezed until she could barely breathe. The creature leaned back, delight glimmering in its eyes. You need only embrace the darkness. Join me. Join him. There's power in secrets, freedom in relinquishing what's left of your old self. The choice is yours, Mother. Conflicting emotions slammed into her like a tidal wave. Freedom, but at a price. No, I won't let them take you. Melissa cried, her voice filled with desperation. She pushed against the barrier, stumbling forward, driven by a primal need to protect him. Noah! But as she took a step, shadows surged again, roaring like a distant storm, coiling and snapping. The walls pulsed, as if the very structure of her world trembled at what she had unleashed. What price had she awakened? The air thick with anticipation, the storm outside grew violent, pounding against the windows as though trying to let loose a flood of bad memories. Through the chaos, she felt something shift the silence, screaming, waiting, anticipating her next choice. What other horrors remained bound in the dark, poised to erupt? What would she have to sacrifice to save Noah from the embrace of night? The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within as icy winds screamed against the glass. And still, Noah's terrified gaze pierced her chest like a dagger. "Mom?" he whispered, as realization washed over her like ice-cold water. "Noah, I will find you." But as her words left her mouth, Melissa knew. Whatever was awakening within her wouldn't stop until it consumed them both. Could she wield the darkness without losing herself? The shadows stirred, ready to claim their prize, leaving her teetering on the edge of despair. But beneath it all, in the shadows, something ancient stirred. The storm was not merely a backdrop, it was alive, harboring secrets of its own. Would the truth empower her or destroy them both when dawn broke? The shadows twisted and churned, the air thick with a malevolent energy. Melissa pushed harder against the barrier, her hands pressing against an invisible force that seemed to howl with a dark hunger. The walls of the room seemed to close in on her, making it harder to breathe. Noah's terrified face was locked in her mind, his pleading eyes a stark contrast to the darkness swirling around him. "Please, just let him go." Her voice cracked, desperation clawing at the edges of her sanity. Each second felt like an eternity. The creature laughed, a sound that reverberated through her bones, filling her with icy dread. "Let him go?" "Oh, Melissa, he is far too precious to relinquish. You see, your son is a key to so much more than you could ever imagine." Its form flickered, a patchwork of nightmares weaving into something almost recognizable, a mockery of family and comfort. It bore Noah's face, warped, the innocent smile replaced by something sinister. "Noah!" She screamed again, the word tearing at her throat. "Fight it! You have to fight!" But the shadows tightened around him, pulsing in rhythm, as though sharing a dark secret with her son. She could sense the creature's grip pulling him further into its depths, siphoning away his light. She felt the cracks in her heart grow wider, despair washing over her like a tide. A noise outside thunder, or perhaps something deeper, more menacing rumbled through the air, a herald of chaos. Lightning flashed, illuminating the twisted tendrils of darkness that licked at the floor, reaching hungrily for her. With each flash, she could see Noah struggling, his small body trembling as shadows coiled tighter around him. Suddenly, a memory surfaced, unbidden her last moments with him before he vanished. She remembered how she had tucked him into bed, reading him a story about heroes and monsters. The heroes always won. But she wasn't a hero, she had sealed the door long ago, forcing the monster into its cage. What had she done? The creature narrowed its eyes, savoring her turmoil. "You can't reverse what's been done, Melissa. The door creaked open the moment you made that choice. It will remain open unless you embrace what it has to offer." "Embrace?" She spat, disgust flooding her mouth. "You think I want any part of this?" "Oh, but you do." The laughter erupted again, a vicious symphony that echoed off the walls. "You've carried the weight of your own choices long enough. Just think of the power you could wield. A second chance. Reclaim what you're too afraid to face." No. She didn't want power. She wanted Noah. Yet the shadows throbbed with a terrible allure, whispering promises through the silence. The storm outside intensified, matching her growing dread, and it felt as if the world teetered on the edge of a dark precipice. Was this it? Had she finally crossed the line of no return? Noah, focus on me. Focus. You're stronger than this. She shouted, trying to break through the shroud enveloping him. She wrapped her mind around an imagined barrier, calling on every ounce of love she had for him, but it felt so far away, like a mirage slipping through her fingers. The shadows pressed closer, taunting, teasing her resolve. You must choose, Melissa. Save him at a cost, or lose him forever. Her heart shattered at that thought, and she finally broke. I'll do whatever it takes. Just let him go. Instantly, the storm surged, and tendrils of darkness whipped around her, squeezing her heart with a vice grip. Colors twisted as the shadows made their demands, the boundaries of her mind warping like a funhouse mirror. No! She screamed as the walls pulsed again, the shadows wrapping tighter around Noah, squeezing the life, the innocence, out of him. She felt the darkness starting to seep into her veins, a cold invasion that sent her heart racing, clawing for light, for sanity. But all she could hear was Noah's voice trembling in the storm. Mom, please, and then darkness fell away, revealing a startling truth, a new memory breaking through. A moment, a name that sent ice through her veins, the name of the creature. The air caught, time stilled, like the heartbeat of a predator poised to strike. She caught it just before it slipped away. The sacrifice requested wound tea just be of her own darkness. It held a bond forged in blood and grief. What did she have left to give? The shadows coiled in tight, thrumming with energy, hungry for her answer. She stood on a precipice of terror, waiting. Knowing the choice demanded of her would split her soul. What would she unravel to save Noah before the storm consumed everything? The air crackled with a new intensity, the storm outside roaring like a beast hungry for flesh. Melissa's heart raced, each beat a drum sounding her resolve, or was it her defeat? The shadows pressed tighter, cold fingers working their way inside her mind, whispering secrets that pricked at her sanity. No! She gasped, shaking her head violently, as if to toss the darkness back. But the shadows pulsed and writhed, mocking her determination. The laughter, dark, guttural, echoed like thunder through the chamber of her despair. You think you can resist us forever? She glanced at Noah, whose small frame struggled against the menace wrapping around him like a serpent. She could see his face twisted in anguish, his eyes wide with fear. Please, Mom. Don't go. Every plea from her son stabbed at her heart. Despite the chaos, she felt a flicker of hope ignite in that moment. As if the strings of fate entwined around their hearts, intertwining their very souls. She had to break this cycle and save him before it was too late. Give me a sign, she breathed, surrendering to the shadows while unwavering in her desire to rescue Noah. Show me what you want. The creature materialized behind her, its form shifting like smoke, its voice smooth and rich with malice. Your son holds the key, but what shall you offer in exchange? Something far more precious. Visions whirled in Melissa's mind, a tempest of memories both tender and grotesque, each a token of her love, regret, and fear. The days she relinquished her old life, the moments she let darkness wrap around her heart to avoid a bitter reality. Raw, bleeding memories lay before her like offerings upon a sacrificial altar, pleading for recognition. You think your past can save him? The creature sneered, teeth glinting in the dim light. You've already divided your spirit. Will you sacrifice your very essence for this child, or will your fear of the unknown paralyze you? Melissa felt her breath hitch. The anticipation was a heavy weight pressing down on her. Why do you desire power? It's the bitterest curse. She shouted, each word filled with defiant passion. It was never about what I wanted, it was about him. It always has been. The wind howled outside, filling her ears with torment. Noah! She cried, reaching beyond the barrier. I'm here. Fight. Please fight with me. His voice, muffled by shadows, floated back. I can't, Mom, I can't stop it. The shadows tightened at his words, enough to wrench her heart. Frantically, she closed her eyes, blocking out the dark spectacle unfolding before her. Take me. She offered, her voice shaking with the weight of her choice. I'll trade my fear, my past. You want my darkness? It's yours. The creature hesitated, its laughter fading into a stretch of eerie silence. The air thickened, swirling with tension as the storm roared louder, as if the world itself held its breath. Suddenly, the shadow shrank away, pulled back with an obedience that sent a chill down her spine. A flicker of light emerged inside the darkness, a small, fragile glow pulsating slowly as it fought against the encroaching blackness. "Look what you've given up," the creature hissed, the sinister edge returning. "But what you've released, so willingly, it may come at a price you're not ready to pay." Confusion fell over her, doubling her desperation. "What do you mean? What price?" The shadows lunged forward, sweeping toward her in a rush like a wild beast. Her heart hammered in her chest as she realized the truth. She was not just bargaining for Noah, she was trading pieces of herself, the very essence of her being, to unlock this sinister game. "No!" she screamed, a sudden clarity piercing through the chaos. "I won't let you take me." In that instant, the world around her went dark, the light extinguished, leaving only the echo of her heartbeat and the oppressive weight of the creature's presence bearing down on her soul. "Noah!" she yelled, urgency sparking her voice. "Stay with me. Fight it, stay with me through this." Yet the silence responded with only an eerie calm, as if the storm had swallowed their pleas. She felt the barrier of minimum hope begin to slip, and with it, her grip on reality. What would emerge from this darkness? And then, even the heart of the storm began to still. Something shifted, unseen and unknowable, and her world teetered on the brink. What would happen when their bond was utterly severed, when she finally succumbed to the shadows? In that terrifying moment, with her fate hanging by a thread, something sinister appeared just beyond her sight, a doorway to an unknown nightmare, calling her name. Would she have the strength to step through, knowing it could cost her everything? And could she save Noah from the darkness threatening to consume them both? Darkness swallowed her whole, wrapping around Melissa like a shroud, thick and suffocating. The silence was deafening. It stung her ears and pressed against her chest, writing the fine line between panic and submission. She gasped, fighting like hell to find her way back to the surface, but there was no surface, only shadows and whispers clawing at her mind. "Noah," she breathed, the name caught somewhere between a prayer and a plea. Was he still there? Was he fighting? The creature's laughter faded into a low, menacing rasp, echoing through the void. "How typical, the way you cling," it mocked. "You think your love can save him? Love is a folly, nothing but a weight that drags you deeper into despair." "No!" she shouted, summoning the strength she didn't know she had. "I won't let you take him." The shadows quivered, as if considering her resolution. With a surge of adrenaline, she pictured her son's face, innocent, radiant, the glow about him once more a possibility. "I'll do anything," she shouted at the darkness, desperate to break its grip. "Anything?" The creature's plural form shifted into something more sinister. "Then you must face your past, your sins have been waiting for you." Suddenly, flickers of her memories washed over her. Painful echoes of laughter mixed with cries of anguish, her mistakes leapt vividly into her life, flashing like a horror reel. The moment she chose the bottle over Noah. The day she broke his heart by shutting him out. Each memory twisted like a blade, probing at her insecurities. A wave of nausea engulfed her. "You have lost him long before you stepped into this storm," the creature hissed. "Time is but a luxury you have squandered. Stop. Just stop." Melissa cried, clutching her head, desperate to escape the onslaught of shame. But it was no use. The darkness pulsed alive, feeding off her regret, transforming it into power. The shadows writhed, forming grotesque figures that danced around her, mocking her misery. In that moment of despair, a realization crept in: she had been unwilling to forgive herself. Fear wrapped around her heart, whispering that she would forever be trapped here in darkness, and Noah would be forever lost. She summoned a forgotten strength, forcing herself to banish the lingering guilt. "I may have failed, but I can still fight. I won't lose him again." For a heartbeat, a glimmer sparked deep within her, a flicker of hope ignited by the thought of Noah, the warmth of his laughter there to drive her. With a resolve that shattered the clutches of despair, she mentally cast aside her string of failures. "Take my pain. She screamed, as if daring the shadows to accept her offer. Take it all. Just let him go. The laughter from the creature erupted into a hurricane of rage. Fool! You think there will be no consequences? Consequences? She shouted back, her voice steady now, resolute. That's what you thrive on. But I won't give in to you. I will not kneel to your darkness. The shadows recoiled, forming a wall of swirling darkness around her. The beast grew silent, and then dark eyes, glistening like obsidian pools, bore into her, assessing her resolve. Very well, but what you will unleash will awaken a nightmare that even you cannot control. Enough of your games. She spat defiantly. With one final rush, the failure and despair pooled in her chest, thickening into a singular pulse. She unleashed it, sending the accumulated darkness swirling in the opposite direction, pushing it away with a wild determination. Suddenly, a bright light exploded around her. Waves of raw energy surged forward, the cacophony of shadows recoiling momentarily blinded, they drew back like a tide retreating from the shore. And then silence. A calm so sudden it felt eerie. Is he safe? She whispered, trembling as she felt the weight lift. But the shadows lurked, whispering still. What you have awakened has barely begun. The price, it's yet to be revealed. Fear spiraled back into her. What did that mean? Then, from the fringes of darkness, a chilling sound reached her ears, a childless laughter, echoed hollowly, deformed and twisted. Mom? Her heart sank, an abyss opening below her. That voice, it was Noah's, but something was off. Noah! She screamed, the darkness closing in around her again. The shadows tightened their grip, pulling her back into their depths as she dared to take a step forward, that laughter taunting like the chains of her past. Would she have the courage to face whatever sinister thing had taken her son from her? What would she have to lose next? Noah! Her scream shattered the eerie silence, echoing into the depths where shadows twisted and churned. The darkness pulsed, heavy and thick, as if it had a heartbeat of its own, taunting her with the answer she feared. That was not the innocent joy she recognized. Mom? The voice came again, sweeter yet twisted, and something cold twisted in her stomach. She stumbled forward, desperate for any sign of her son. Noah! The laughter seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once, cackling like nails scraping across stone. Each note wrapped around her tighter, pulling her into a chasm of uncertainty. Come play, Mom, it echoed, the syllables slipping into a sing-song chant. I'll find you. Melissa cried, each word punctuated with determination, but as she drifted deeper into the shadows, cold fled through her veins. The darkness wrapped tighter, smothering her hope, whispering of sins long buried in unheeded warnings. You know what you've done. The voice shifted now, darker, more adult, reflecting echoes of judgment. You abandoned me. No. Her voice cracked, rippling with anguish. I tried? It echoed, filled with a venomous laughter, a sound that belonged to no child. Did you even look for me? A shudder clawed up her spine, and she pressed her palms against her ears, but the laughter clawed its way beneath her skin. You left me in the dark, it hissed, sending icy tendrils of dread wrapping around her throat. And now I'm back, but not alone. A rush of chill swept through her. What do you mean not alone? The shadows seemed to ripple with undefined shapes, forming faint outlines of figures she could not quite see but felt closing in. Those you lost, they come to play, it said, an unsettling sense of glee in its tone. You join us? Melissa clenched her fists, pulling herself up as the darkness pressed in. Enough! No longer just a weak appeal, her voice roared out. I let you take my son. The shadows flickered, confused by her defiance. With every ounce of determination, she pushed against the encroaching void. Memories surged to her, not just failures, but moments of laughter that warmed her soul. She saw Noah's first steps, his contagious giggle, the way his eyes lit up with wonder. He is still in there. She cried, willing the light to break through the shadow-esque grip. In a frenzied act of will, she grasped at the flickering light of her memories, channeling her love. Take my pain, my fears, my guilt. But give him back. He deserves more than this torment. The laughter halted, an almost tangible silence falling. But then crack! A rift split the darkness, spilling a brilliant light that illuminated the grotesque forms lurking around her. She was not prepared for what poured through. Souls twisted in grief, spectral echoes of her past, all drawn by despair. Faces she'd forgotten, a chorus of weeping voices lamented their lost lives. Melissa staggered back, her heart pounding. No! Join us, they whispered, reaching out with bony fingers, yearning for her embrace. You can never escape. Help! She cried, panic etched into every pulse of her heart. But the tendrils of shadows reached marionette-like fingers toward the gathering forms, pulling them closer. Conflict tore at her, she had to fight, but in this moment, the Shadow-esque promises glimmered like stolen jewels. What if they were right? What if she truly had failed everyone she loved, forever lost in this twisted limbo? As doubt seeped in, a howl echoed in the distance, a child's scream merging with her own. Melissa's resolve surged once more, unyielding. I will not abandon you again. I will bring you back. Foolish woman! The first creature roared, slashing through the darkness like a knife. You awaken the dark curse you cannot control. Bright light burst through the void, flickering, as if the fabric of reality trembled. Yet beyond it, a vibrant silhouette formed. Noah stepped forward, his eyes bright but shadowed. Mom? The sweetness still there, but sinister undertones pulsed through, creating an urgent chill. Noah! She screamed, reaching out, but instinct warned her back. What had returned? A split second of hesitation cost too much. As his laughter rang out, something twisted in her gut. The shadows hungered. And she didn't know if she would survive this encounter. Don't let him go! An anguished soul cried, lunging towards her. But was it him she was saving or something worse? And as shadows swirled and engulfed the light, terror locked around her heart. How deep would she have to descend to reclaim her son? What if he wasn't the one she sought anymore? Suddenly, the air crackled with dark energy, and Melissa felt the walls closing in again, a dark vortex forming, threatening to swallow them all. Noah, she trembled, searching desperately through the chaos. What have I done? Something was awakening, stirring restlessly, and she feared the next line of laughter would belong not to her son but something much darker. What would emerge from that void? What cursed fate awaited them? The darkness thickened, curling around Melissa like a malicious fog, coiling tighter as she reached for Noah, desperate not to let him slip away. Every ounce of her being screamed that this wasn't truly her son. The laughter warped around her, tugging at her sanity, pulling her down into its depths. Mom, help me! Noah's voice echoed, genuine yet distorted, an agonizing reminder of what was lost and what could never return. No! She cried out, heart cracking under the weight of the choice she had made. The storm raged outside, and the shadows locked them in a fierce embrace, a potent captor threatening to snatch her son forever. I want to be a part of your twisted game. She shouted defiantly, emboldened by the flickering warmth of her love for Noah, even as it wavered against the encroaching darkness. The creature's laughter twisted through the air, amusement and malice intertwined. You think you can resist? You'll see. You'll face them all. Who? She gasped, shadows swirling around her legs, making each step an uphill battle against the tide of despair. Those you abandoned to this darkness. The words hissed around her, each syllable a bitter sting slashing through her heart. The shadows shifted and morphed into faces she barely recognized, figures she had failed, lives she had ignored. No! The agony of their presence was crushing, but she held onto Noah's image, a flickering ember smothered beneath an avalanche of grief. This stops now. In a burst of desperation, she thrust her hand forward, reaching for the light within her, warm memories ignited by the love those twisted shadows tried to extinguish. You're my son. I'll break this curse. An eruption of energy flowed through her as pieces of her own light jolted towards Noah, the laughter of their past, the moments that defined their bond. The shadows howled in rage, recoiling from the luminous force that surged between mother and son. Mom, don't let them take me. His voice rang sharp, filled with fear and clarity as he fought against the tendrils that sought to claim him. The creature screeched, its form rippling, warping in the glow of their connection. You think a flicker of love can combat the abyss? Embrace it. Embrace what you've done. No. The word roared from her lips, the rebellion in her voice forging an invisible armor around her heart. I have loved him fiercely, and that love is stronger than any shadow you can conjure. In that moment, clarity erupted, a thread of truth pulled at her core, reminding her that she had buried her guilt and shame beneath grief, thinking it could shield her. But the love of a mother was a flame that couldn't be snuffed out. With renewed ferocity, Melissa summoned all her strength. My son is not a key to your darkness. She bellowed, pouring out her memories, weaving them into a shield around Noah. The light flashed and melted the shadows, illuminating the void that had sought to consume them. In an explosive burst, she tore through the bindings of despair, reaching deep into herself and facing the specters of her choices. I own my past. I won't hide any longer. The shadows quivered, shrank back as if stung, their grip loosening on her beloved child. For an instant, the swirling darkness hesitated as the very fabric of their bond surged, carving pathways into the void, illuminating the pathway out. Noah! Come to me! With a force that shook the very ground, she held the light between them high. The creature's jagged laugh flickered, but with every pulse of Melissa's declaration, the cacophony of voices pleading for release shrank, grew fainter. As Noah strained against the shadows, a fierce determination filled his small frame. I'm coming, Mom! He shouted, eyes gleaming with newfound hope. The shadows began to shrink against the light, pushing away as if scorched. Suddenly, hands reached around Melissa, wrapping her in warmth she had longed for, the heartbeat of a connection unbroken. The storm outside raged on, but within the eye of this tempest, clarity bloomed, cutting a path to their shared truth. Together, she whispered, we'll face the darkness. With a final surge of energy, Melissa extended her hand, grasping Noah's through the barrier. Light erupted from their connection, incandescent and unstoppable, unfurling against the shadows one last time. No! The creature screeched, its body splintering under the radiance as if the very essence of despair could shatter in the face of unyielding love. And then, in a blinding flash, the storm's hold crumbled. The shadows unraveled, howling as they disintegrated, drawn back to the void from which they came. Melissa stumbled as the room shook, the air brightening, filling with warmth. The darkness released its grip, and the terrible weight of secrets seemed to lift, leaving only the bittersweet echo of memories both painful and beautiful imbued with lessons of resilience. The storm outside shed its fury, tapering into stillness, revealing a world washed clean. Melissa collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, but there, next to her, stood Noah, truly, undeniably her son. Mom? He asked, his voice small and filled with love. Yes, Noah. I'm here. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she wrapped her arms tightly around him. The hug felt real, tangible, as if both their spirits had emerged anew. I thought I lost you, she sobbed, holding him fiercely. No, you saved me, he whispered softly against her shoulder. I always knew you would. As the last echoes of darkness faded, silence wrapped the room like a warm blanket. They sat together in that cocoon of love, allowing the past scars to heal, knowing that brighter days awaited them. And amid the splintered remains of what had been, hope began to flourish. The storm may have tested them, but the price had been paid, and they were free. Together. Now is the time to act, friends. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your support means everything to keep these stories coming.